Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I'm the lead learner at the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful summer and a good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I just want to invite everybody, if you're not currently a member of the SCEA, to check us out at the scea.org, or you can go to jointhescea.org and learn more about being a member of the South Carolina Education Association and also a member of the National Education Association. But without further ado, I want to bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is someone that I taught with a while ago. Like, it seems like it was just a couple of years ago, but it's been a while now. He's been an educator for over 2 decades in South Carolina, Arizona, and now Ohio. He's been a middle school teacher. He's taught math, social studies, ELA. He's been a curriculum coach, an assistant principal at all 3 levels, an athletics director, and principal at an elementary school. And now he's taking on a new challenge at Riverside High School in the second largest district in the county with over 1,800 kids. He was named Coach of the Year in South Carolina. He was a Rookie Athletic Director of the Year in Arizona. And I'm so thrilled that he, when I sent out sort of a call for people to come and present for us at the SCEA, that he was willing to come on and share some ideas, because everywhere that Bill Mayer goes, he's successful. And he's successful because he demands a lot, I think, from himself. And then he builds the relationships that are necessary to create success around him. And I know that he's got so many tips that he can share with us about building school culture. So without further ado, here is Bill Mayer. Bill, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you guys for having me tonight.
Yeah. So it's been a while.
Yes.
I've been following you on Facebook as you went out to Arizona and now into Ohio, and all the cool things you were doing at Madison Elementary School over the past couple of years. And I know you're really excited about this new opportunity. Can you tell people a little bit about your journey in education and your background, a little bit more than what I was briefly.
You kind of summed it up pretty well there. But I started off in Madison, Ohio, graduated in 97, went to Heidelberg, played 2 sports there, graduated in 01, went down to South Carolina, worked 14 years in Horry County schools, had a number of different opportunities to lead, whether it was a coach, a teacher, curriculum coach, and then obviously assistant principal. Went out to Arizona, got kind of recruited by an alumni from Madison to this Mecca academic school, Paradise Honors. I was an athletic director, assistant principal out there. The girl kind of brought me back to Ohio, I'm not going to lie, and came back to my hometown, which is, I believe every educator should have the opportunity to lead in their hometown. And it kind of, we talk about remembering your why, but it's kind of like giving back. I call it being a servant leader when you are trying to make your hometown better through education. And we do that in a lot of different ways, community service and so forth. But that was a great opportunity. These last 6 years, I was 1 year at the high school and then 5 years at the elementary. And I graduated from that high school, I graduated from that elementary, and was actually in our old middle school. So it was kind of the best of all 3 worlds that I got to work in that building, got to work with teachers that were my teachers. And now I was supposedly, their boss, so to speak. So continuing those and forming those relationships. And it was very powerful to, take everything that I learned from them, and then obviously in college and so forth, and then all the relationships that I've learned and been a part of in South Carolina, Arizona, to give back to my hometown.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to watch this journey and to see you post about things that you had going on at your school, and really see the human connection that to me is what makes a school leader successful, is recognizing the value of every single person in the building, which you did, building those connections with everybody in the building, making sure that you're taking care of the humans in your building, first of all, and building those relationships, letting them know that they have value and that what they do matters. And then making sure that every student that comes in that building also feels valued. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy that has developed as you've become this school leader? What's your philosophy, and what recommendations would you make to other people who are interested in improving school culture?
Well, in regards to school culture, I think it's intentional effort, and it's the little things that add up. I call it, I'm trying to establish everywhere I go a culture of family and team. And I didn't even have that little slogan, so to speak, until the last couple of years. It just, but from learning from different leaders in the sports world, then to my mentors and my peers that I've worked in all these great places, it comes back to a family and a team. And families have arguments behind the scenes, teams have disagreements on play calls and all that, but the bottom line is when it's execution time, they find a way to be all system go, all row in the boat in the same direction. And I think the best buildings, I think the best companies, the best organizations have that elite positive culture where they're all working together. Like I said, they're all rowing the boat and they're digging deep, because the rough waters are going to be coming. We've had that with COVID, we've had that with virtual learning, we've had that with lack of substitutes, lack of educators in certain states and certain counties. So you have to remember that we're all in this together. And like you said, I think culture is making sure all are recognized. It's intentional effort. It's a lot of work to build culture. It's a lot of work to recognize when people are going the extra mile. And it's not just teachers, it's not just administrators, it's not just the coach of the year. It is the instructional staff, it's the cafeteria, it's the maintenance department, it's the kitchen staff. It's everybody that is all working as one for your common goal, whatever that is.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we silo ourselves a little too much in education, and even like at the high school level, like silo ourselves into departments and fail to see how there's this connectedness between the work that everybody in that building is doing for those students. As you kind of went into to become that principal at Madison Elementary School, what are some of the things that you did early on to establish the culture that you wanted, and what were some of the things maybe that you had to overcome?
Well, for sure, it's all about gaining that trust and that respect and having those conversations. One thing I learned, I just had a new assistant principal. I've had a couple of assistant principals at the elementary because they've moved on to bigger and better things and titles and so forth. But one thing I learned from my just previous assistant principal, just when he was getting into his new office at the beginning of the summer last year, is him asking that extra question about, tell me a little bit more. They said, I have two kids. Well, what are their names? All those little extra thing, that extra moment, that extra couple minutes matter. We're always very, very busy, especially when you're taking on a new role and you got to you're trying to catch up and learn all the new things. But that's one thing I learned real quickly. And I kind of knew that and so forth, but I saw it live just this past year with Doug Baker, that he was asking and establishing those relationships. And I feel like I do a pretty good job with that. But I was always learning something new, and I caught that right off the bat about him asking that extra question, and that is that relationship piece, and that is that trust. So to extend that, so to speak, even in my current role, my official first day is August 1st, but I've been working ever since I got the title, so to speak, as soon as they gave me the keys. So one of the first things I did was I sent a survey out to my current staff, and it's a big staff. It's twice as big as the elementary staff. And the only way I'm going to get to know them is asking questions. So I asked them 5 or 6 questions, a little bit about their family, their favorite book or movie, their why, what they thought was very successful so far at the high school in the last couple of years, some needs improvements. But that gains that trust, and that hopefully gets their buy-in, that I value their opinion on things that we need to make some adjustment or continue. It's not just going to be the mayor show coming into this new place. And another thing I did too was I hit the ground running as soon as I was kind of given the title. I'm at all these open gyms. I'm at these camps. I'm at these they had a tailgate for like the last day of the school year for the whole district. So they had rotations, they had some PD going on and so forth. So I made sure I was out there, putting faces with names and shaking hands and so forth, because I think that's very, very important, to get to know each other as quick as possible. Because like I said, the going is going to get tough, the rough waters will come, and the more we're tight, thick as thieves, I call it pack of wolves, the better that we're going to obviously rise to the occasion.
Yeah. One thing that I've struggled with throughout my career, and I know you're a family guy, and it's your family's so important to you. A lot of educators struggle with this work-life balance. We get so passionate about the work that we do, and it's easy to throw yourself into it and wind up working, multiple 12, 13-hour days. And when we were at Carolina Forest, and I'm coaching every season and announcing the home games and all that stuff. And you just and how do you work with your team, the people in your building, and establishing a work-life balance? What is your advice to them?
Well, I preach three things. I preach being a kid connector, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. I preach being a workhorse, and I preach representing our brand. Now, workhorse can be, construed in many different ways, but in my eyes, you work as hard as you can for as long as you can. That like you said, that has balance, because just like anything else, if you don't have a full tank, you're going to come in, you're going to have, attitude, you're going to be sluggish, and the kids feed off of that. That you need a fully charged, just like an athlete, a running back, and so forth. You need them fully fed, so to speak, and hitting at all cylinders. So, I've seen where administrators or leaders have said, the doors are locked on the weekend. We don't want you living here on Saturday and Sundays. Sometimes, and that's a tough balance, because some people, they have certain pockets and windows to get some things done, because then they know their schedule and they're going to organize it accordingly. But I think sometimes, I've shooed people out. I mean, you can ask the staff just recently, before a holiday break, get gone, almost beat the kids out the door, so to speak. You have all Christmas break to catch up or get ready for Monday and so forth. And usually you have PD days coming back anyways. But, anytime you have trade out time, anytime that you can give their time back, I've learned real quickly how you can help teachers out real quick, or feed them and give them time, right?
Yeah.
And that could be as simple as faculty meetings too. You have this scheduled, you got to have so many per year and so forth. And, as simple as it's good, or a BLT, we call them building leadership teams, or TBTs, weekly TBT, or PLC, as it's called throughout the country. And you have a free one, go do what you need to do. That's good for mental health, that's good for culture and climate. So that's having that, you do what you can, in regards to that. But sometimes you need to just tell some of these people, go home, because they need it. I mean, they need it, because we're busting our tails 180 days a year, and people will question that. There's 365 days in the year, but come roll up your sleeves for a couple of days. And some parents got to see that, right? When they went to virtual learning, they were the new teacher, they were the new tutor, so to speak. And it wasn't so easy being that tutor or teacher at home. So I think we gained a lot of respect during that virtual, of how important we are and how much we do.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing, Bill, I know you've seen this throughout your career, I'm sure. Sometimes administrators, most administrators were former teachers. And sometimes administrators get into these roles and forget what it's like to be a teacher. How do you stay sort of connected to their mindset to make sure that you're staying in sort of tapped into their world, so that you're understanding what they're going through, so that relationship that you have with them is one not that's built on this antagonism, but that's built on mutual respect? How do you do that?
I think it's being visible. I think visibility is key. It's key for a lot of things: safety, high expectations, the behavior goes down, the academics go up when the administrators, I call it sharking the building or sharking the classrooms. And it's not a gotcha, I'm going looking to see who's slacking in the classrooms and so forth. It's there to support. These teachers are prepping a lesson or multiple lessons a day, and they're performing. They want to see the administrators, especially the great teachers. They want to see the administrators in their rooms, because that tells them, that validates all their preparation and that their lesson matters. And when you're in those rooms, yes, some of them are the formal observations and so forth, but some of the most authentic observations are the little pop-ins and walkthroughs, and giving them their attaboys when you see something like blended learning, or project-based learning, or hands-on learning, or great discussion where they're debating and using that critical thinking and so forth. That's all really, really good. And that's the attaboy, that's the attagirl that they need because sometimes this job is very thankless, as we know. And sometimes we get sometimes we get those attaboys from parents or the administrator or the students and so forth. But leaders are supposed to get other leaders to rise up and, be their best versions of themselves. And I think coming back to the visibility, you're not going to gain trust. You're not going to gain respect by sitting in those, your four walls inside your office. Some of that stuff is needed to be in there. You got to return emails somewhat in a timely fashion, but a lot of that can be done before school or after school. You should be out in the mix, out and about in the hallways, seeing them, making eye contact. I'm big into being at the bus stop, when the kids get off the buses and welcoming the kids and seeing the parents when they get out of their cars. But as soon as those kids are in the building, I'm up and down those hallways, because I want them to see that I'm going to be around. And that goes with the cafeteria, that goes with the athletic events, etc. And when they're coaching, and then I always do too, is if I'm visible, I'm going to know what's going on in the building even more. And I do a weekly set the tone, attack the week. It's kind of like a summary on Friday of all of the things that went well. And then it's my master calendar of things that are coming up, so to keep everybody on the same page. But I'm not going to know what to put in that set the tone, attack the week if I'm not out and about seeing all the good things that are happening. And, as a leader, you want to know what's going on in your building, and that's the only way you're going to do is be out and about, and working together, for these young people.
Yeah. Let's shift our conversation to these young people. You talk about being a kid connector. What exactly do you mean by that, and how does that inform the work that you do?
All right. Well, I have a couple of notes because I didn't know how this was going to go. So yeah, I kind of prepped for that a little bit. It comes back to relationships matter, as we talk about. And I always give credit where credit's due. And I stole this term from Rob Gasparella. I was getting recruited to go out to Texas, Houston Independent School District. And it was a very rough school district, urban school district, where high poverty and a lot of behavior problems and so forth. And he said that he needed to have kid connectors throughout his building. Everybody that these children interacted day in and day out had to be kid connectors. And I emphasize that's why everybody is so important, not just the teacher, the administrators, the aides, the secretaries, everybody that these kids interact with, because these kids will come to school more because they cannot miss seeing Coach Willis, Jackie Berry, Cheryl General, Fortuna, whoever these people are for them. So and I was only with this guy for 3 days, and he just lit my candle, so to speak. I ended up not going out there. I waited another year, came back to Horry County School for one more year, and then I ended up going out to Arizona. And I have ran with that term ever since. And I'm actually trying to write a book. I'm taking forever to do it and adding little pieces to it. But kid connectors, in a nutshell, is a person that is real with kids. They understand the kids inside and out. They want to know more about them. They have morning meetings with these kids. They ask about their weekends. They go to their events on occasion when they have time. One of my favorite books, and it might be my favorite book in regards to education, it's called Lead for God's Sake. And it's about this servant leader, Joe the janitor. And I don't want to ruin the book, but essentially this custodian is that kid connector in every sense of the word. These kids come to see them. The Friday night football quarterback that's nervous about the big game comes and talks with them. The kid that has too much pressure because all the tests and all the assessments and being the valedictorian comes to talk to them. A little girl that their parents are going through a divorce goes to talk to them. And then later you find out at the end of this book that this guy is like a Fortune 500 businessman, and he wasn't doing it for the money. He was very, very successful. It was a calling to him. And, that's what lit his candle, so to speak. And, ends up dying in the end of the book. And he was so popular with so many, it wasn't, he was more popular than the principal or some of the teachers or the guidance counselors and so forth. These kids wanted to talk to him because he formed that bond and that trust with them. So they couldn't even have the funeral at the normal funeral hall, they had to actually use this Mecca gym, their Mecca gym, and was standing room only. And that, they find out who he is and so forth. And that just, to me, that's law of legacy. That's how you want to be remembered. And I preach this to my staffs in the past, that, at your retirement party, what are they going to say? What kids are going to be inviting you to their graduation parties? What's going to be written on your tombstone or said at your eulogy? And it all comes back to relationships. I mean, it all comes back to relationships with your peers, working together as one for a common goal, but also with these children. They're not going to remember, dividing fractions and keep change flip. They're going to remember how you made them feel, day in and day out for those 180 days that you had with them.
Yeah, 100%. That's been my experience, is that those are the things that stick, and the things that they'll need to learn, they'll learn along the way, but they'll be in school and they'll be in a position to succeed if they've got those strong relationships with good people. It reminds me of this is not my quote. Somebody said this in a video I was watching. He said, it's not just about asking how you're doing, it's caring about the answer to that.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things I think sometimes in schools, we get so wrapped up in preparing kids for these tests and get so wrapped up in the data, which is important, but we get so wrapped up in that the relationship part sometimes gets put on the back burner. And I think what I hear from you saying is that the relationship is primary, that the relationship and building that rapport with the students has to come first. And then you're in a position where you can deliver on the curriculum and deliver success. Is that with that?
Oh, for sure. My three of my favorite quotes are, no significant learning can take place without a significant relationship. Children don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And then I had the fortunate experience to go up to Chicago to hear Maya Angelou speak, and her famous quote, and it ties to people, but it really, really ties to children. If we think about it in our profession, is, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. These kids, they come to school a lot of times for 2 meals a day and for someone to give a rip about who they are, asking those questions, what you did on the weekend, what kind of, have you watched Stranger Things or Outer Banks and all that kind of stuff, something that they can connect with, because they go home, not all of them, but there is a certain percentage that go home and nobody cares. They put them on an electronic device, or the parents are nowhere to be found, or, back in our Carolina Forest days, we had a lot of those kids that sometimes would go to Myrtle Beach, or even the Myrtle Beach kids, that they're sometimes jumping from hotel to hotel. All they're thinking about is the roof over their head that night. And if they're going to be fed, they don't care about our homework. They're trying to survive, so to speak. So coming back to what Rob Gasparello said, having that kid connector that they can connect with, and I had them, you had them. I mean, we worked with them. I mean, I could take this whole hour here and talk about all the people at Ocean Bay Middle School, Conway Middle School, Carolina Forest High School, Paradise Honors, North Elementary, Madison High School, and then I'm already meeting them at Riverside that I know are going to go the extra mile for these kids, and they're not going to ask questions like, what happened to you? They're going to say, they're going to ask those questions like, what happened to you? Not, right. Because they're going to try to dig deep, because we know with, all our training with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, yes, with all the triggers, that these kids are coming to us with a lot of baggage and a lot of extras, as I call it. And we have to take that in consideration. We can't hold grudges, and we have to give extra chances and a fresh start the next day. Easier said than done. I remember before I got in administration and getting all this extra training, but if those relationships are established, and I, when I was coaching, we were very successful at Carolina Forest, with wrestling and baseball and girls golf. Those kids would run through a wall for me. They would do anything for Coach Mayer, so to speak. And it's because they knew I cared. I remember having a wrestler that had a very unfortunate experience to him prior to me with his brother, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Accidentally shot his brother, hunting accident. Yeah. And I come in at 21 years old, years of age, and I was about the same age, and I acted kind of the same way, and me and him connected like that, and I was a mentor to him. I mean, we have a very, very important job, and I think it's the most important job in America. That, and they're asking more and more out of us, as we know, right? We're the custodian, we're the psychiatrist, I mean, we're everything, right? We're the counselor, we're the coach, we're feeding them sometimes out of our desk drawers, and so forth. But I mean, what a rewarding job. I mean, you can do a lot of things. You're a very, you got the social skills. You could go sell anything you want. Same thing with me. But I don't know if I would wake up each and every day. My wife does a great job. She sells real estate and so forth. And it's awesome to put them in their first home and so forth. But I don't know if that would make me tick the way I tick, because I love working with young people. I love working with adults that go that extra mile, that are those kid connectors and workhorses and representing our brand.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I was just going to ask you that next. So you mentioned being a kid connector, being a workhorse, and you mentioned representing your brand. Can you kind of flesh that out a little bit for people? What do you mean by representing your brand?
Representing a brand is, it's whatever. I have a theme every year. Like some quotes are: great moments are born from great opportunities, or row the boat. PJ Fleck's recent book, that was our book. That was our mantra last year. This year is going to be the law of legacy, which I've used before, but it's a new building. The Riverside way, so to speak, what we kind of stand for. I've talked about in the past, like our big five at North, where starts safety first, obviously, is the most important, but culture and climate is a very close second. Because if you don't have everybody working together positively with full energy and full tilt, then obviously the product goes down. Number 3 is where relationships matter. Number 4 is high expectations and rigor. And number 5 is communication is key. So that's our big 5 at North. And I've condensed that down to RHS, which comes back to the relationship matter, high expectations and rigor with everything we do, kind of like a gold standard. And then the S is like the 4 S's: safety, systems in place, support for not only the students but also the staff, and then a standard of excellence, just and everything and how we handle ourselves. But yeah, that's kind of your brand. I took the quote from the movie Yellowstone. I kind of adjusted a smidge, but the brand isn't something you earn; it's something that you live up to. And that's just like continuous improvement. We're never arriving. We never punched the ticket. We're always trying to represent our brand or our mantra, so to speak, each and every year. So I try to change it up every year to kind of inspire and motivate the staff. I put that on the back of our t-shirts, right from the jump. Everybody gets a t-shirt at the beginning of the year, just like a sports team, right? And that kind of directs our focus. And I always try to circle back when certain things come, like, yep, we were all rowing the boat there yesterday at that, that field day, or we were all rowing that boat tonight at that 5th grade award ceremony, or that concert, etc. So whatever that mantra is for that year, I try to make sure it's kind of ingrained into their brains throughout the year. But we're focused. It's comes back to the mission and vision, all in the same direction.
Yeah. One of the, I don't know how exactly what teacher morale is like in where you are. I know I can speak generally in South Carolina. It's pretty is about as low as I've seen it. We've seen it continue, like you mentioned, COVID and having to go virtual and hybrid, and all the masking and all the politics around that, and just educators were already kind of stressed out, and then you've got the optics of school violence that are taking place across the country, and just so many things that are weighing on our teachers. How do you address morale with your staff, and what is morale like where you are? And what interventions do you use to help encourage and inspire educators who are struggling so much right now?
I think it comes back to that relationship piece and that trust piece, and communicating and working as a team and checking in on them. And like I said, I made an example of Mr. Baker asking those extra questions. When we hear a teacher is struggling, we're not going to sit back and say, suck it up and so forth. We're going to go check on them and so forth. And there are a lot of things coming our way, especially like you said, the safety with school violence. It's happening at elementaries, it's happening in middle schools and high schools. You can't just say it's happening at high schools, because it's not. but ensuring all those things that these teachers feel safe to come to work, they feel supported. We talk about whole child, initiatives and so forth, healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. But that's whole educator, that's whole adult too, because the mental health aspect, we think about checking in with these kids and PBIS and tier 2 and all this kind of stuff, but our staff need it too. They have a lot of things going on in their lives, and like you said, with virtual learning, it was very, very stressful. Some teachers are very, very competitive. They're not, they don't want to stand and deliver. They don't want to say, well, I taught it to them and that's how it is. They feel like failures if the kids are failing. And in virtual learning, it was not successful. Even the most successful schools, and our school was successful, it's elementary and so forth, but the wrong kids were in virtual. The kids that didn't have support, they didn't have internet and so forth. And then the teachers take that on themselves. One of my buddies, one of my best teachers at Madison High School, is very competitive. He's a math teacher, go-getter. He gives up his planning. He tutors kids on the side. He had a lot of failures because these kids were not checking in. They were not. He can get them to rise to the occasion in his four walls, but when they're at home with no support, nobody's getting them up, nobody's having the routines and expectations out of them. That internalized, a lot of teachers took that upon themselves. Whether a central office or administrator was putting pressure on them at all, they are competitive with themselves. They got in this business for the right reasons, and some of them were not successful because it wasn't a successful formula. And then masks and no masks, and like you said, the stress of picking one side or the other, and it's the politics. It's always going to be around education, but it needs to stay out because it's an important job, and it's not for everybody, and it's a hard job, and we don't need to be making it harder on this profession because, like they pay a little bit better up north. Let's be honest, right, and so forth. But it's not these teachers. I remember I coached like crazy for my supplemental. I worked at the golf course, on the weekends. I could. I coached 3 sports like you did and so forth. But a lot of my brother, Bob, all these guys that they're working in the restaurant industry, in the evenings, and that's before they had families, so the work time, like you're saying, balance. They could work, they're go-getters, so they could work all hours of the night, but sometimes you got to come back to the family, to your little one, and to your wife or your spouse. And it's just it's tough on educators right now, especially when the paying or the living wage is not what it should be.
100%. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I love that you say that you don't just tell them to suck it up. And I have actually heard that message from different school leaders, throughout my career. Most of the school leaders I've been around have been supportive, but I have heard that kind of rhetoric, suck it up, just deal with it, just move, and I love the fact that you don't do that you don't brush it off, that you're seeing your educators not just as these workers, but that they're human beings first, with inner lives, with physical health, mental health, social emotional health, with needs that they have in their personal life that they're taking care of. And I think that's really what we need more leaders to be vocal about, is to not just tell educators to suck it up, but to see them as human beings first and try to figure out, okay, what do you need? How can I help you? And helping connect those educators to resources to help themselves in terms of their wellness, in terms of their efficacy, with resources to help them become more effective, instead of just playing this game of like, well, that's a bad teacher or they're lazy or whatever. There may be something going on, and I love the fact that you're open-minded and willing to have those conversations.
And that comes back with empathy, back to empathy and so forth. And I've gotten better with that. I'm not going to lie to you. When I first got in, I had that coaching mentality and so forth. But you get to know your staff more the more you ask those questions, the more you're around them, the more I follow a lot of them on Facebook and so forth. I'll comment, oh man, that birthday party looked really, really nice for your child and so forth, or that trip was really awesome. How was that? And that comes back to that relationship and that trust that is formed by little intentional conversations and so forth. But the trust has to be there for them to share those type of things. And that's all from the jump. That's all from the start of intentional efforts, like I said.
Yeah. And I think being an effective leader, one of the keys to being an effective leader is having confidence in yourself, but also not having too big of an ego so that you can open yourself up to constructive comments on your leadership and constructive comments on how the school, things are going in the school. Mm-hmm. One of the big problems I've seen sometimes take place is educators are too scared to talk with their school leaders about their issues. And then they start talking to each other, and it creates this sort of backstabbing, gossipy kind of culture, and that disintegrates. And then there's like this, all of a sudden, this built-in antagonism between school leadership and their faculty or their staff. How do you, I mean, you've already kind of outlined that, but how are you planning to avoid that as you move from the elementary to the high school level?
Yeah, well, we have already on my master calendar, we have BLTs set up where the teachers can bring issues and so forth. I already set up, with obviously in Ohio and some of the northern states, we have unions, so to speak. So even in my union, even my interview, part of my interview was just with the union, and then it was also the initial interview, and then with the administrative team. So one of the things I told them that I wanted to have bi-weekly meetings with the union, so to speak, to get a pulse. That's what the name of the meetings are, a pulse meeting. And because especially me coming into a building at a high school level twice as big, I'm not going to know everything. And, I'm going to miss some things. Obviously I have four assistant principals that they have all their responsibilities, but we're going to be sitting in, and I'm going to reiterating what I have with the union meetings and the pulse meetings back to my administrative team, just to obviously we want to clean it up. Because the most competitive and I guess the best leaders will be able to look in the mirror and not say, like I said, the brand isn't something you earn, it's something you live up to. You're constantly trying to tweak and get better, and the most competitive people are going to be able to. Why do we look at film as an athletic, as athletes? We want to go figure out why we struck out here, or why we didn't make a tackle there, because we're trying to learn from our mistakes, and we're going to make mistakes. I think the more you build that trust and have that relationship with your staff, those people can come to you and have those conversations, and feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah. I love the fact that you've been at each level, at the elementary, middle, and high school level, and also in athletics. And I think being a coach is, I don't know how you feel about this, but being a coach is one of the best things that I went through to help me as a teacher. Because there's a subtle difference between coaching and teaching, but there's so much that we learn as a coach in working with players and developing their skill set, inspiring them to be their best, that applies to the classroom. I'm sure that you've experienced some of that. So maybe talk a little bit about how your time as a coach and as an athletics director has helped you in terms of school leadership.
Well, I think you have to you get to see these kids outside that classroom. You get to know them a lot more, especially the ones if you're winning state championships, or you're having all state athletes and so forth. You are getting these kids to rise to the occasion, to go that extra degree. We call it 212 to 211 degrees. The water's not boiling. At 212, it is boiling. To create enough steam for a locomotive to move a locomotive, et cetera. And one of my favorite quotes from Coach Willis and Coach Fortuna is hard work equals success. And we can instill and motivate and get these kids and inspire these kids to rise to the occasion. And I think that all those skill sets and all those experiences with coaching all these different sports in different states and so forth, that carries over into as a leader in the classroom and so forth. As the best kid connectors, in my opinion, have that coaching mentality, whether they've been a coach or not. Some of my best teachers have been coaches. Sometimes you get a broad deal that, they're just a social studies teacher, football, so forth. But they know how to make that connection with these kids and get them to the rise to the occasion. I was a math teacher, and I took my job very, very seriously as a math teacher. But I took all that coaching and all my athletics that I had experienced at the collegiate level with all my coaches that made me find a way to win and dig deep and, go the extra mile. I carried that into the classroom too. And I think that, I had a couple of things that I think, the best kid connectors that I've been around, whether it's a coach for me or, like I said, through South Carolina, Arizona, these are some things that I think the best kid connectors and coach mentalities do. They put kids first. They find a way to win with kids. They have high expectations for kids. They go to the extra mile for kids. They dig deep with the hardest kids to love. One of my favorite quotes is, "A child will burn down the village to feel its warmth." You know, a kid connector knows that these kids, like we've talked about, have baggage, trauma, extras, and they take that in consideration, and they understand to have the mindset of not what's wrong with you, but what could have happened to you. And we kind of said that already as well. But those coaches, they have to take those, they, think about this. A coach can't just, kick the kid off the I mean, we can't do that anymore. They have to find the strength in every kid, right? And utilize them in some fashion. And the same thing, we have to do that as educators. We have to celebrate the small little successes. When Johnny came to class on time for 5 days in a row, or they turn their homework in back-to-back days, you got to make a big deal out of it. That creates the momentum, and that creates your culture and your climate amongst your room, because you don't want one or two kids train wrecking your class for the other 23. And it's the same thing. You don't want, 5 teachers in your building train wrecking it for the other 70 or the other 120, 25 teachers. So you have to work with all people as a leader, and as a teacher, you have to work with all kids and try to find a way to win. And that comes back to that coaching mentality of getting those people to rise to the occasion 1% better every day. They might not be all state athletes, they might not be all straight A students, and they might not be unbelievable first round draft pick teachers, but you have to get them better each and every day that you're around them. And that's what good leaders do.
Yeah, definitely. I love the fact that you're you're getting to some of this, some trauma informed philosophy. You talked about we got to get away from what's wrong with you. Why are you so bad, to what happened to you? Because and we're going to have, actually, in a couple of weeks, on July 28th, we're having a one of the experts in our state, Kara Lee, is going to talk, who ran our trauma informed practices for the state out of USC Upstate. She's going to do an hour-long session on trauma informed practices. In as we've learned about this, how has that changed the way you manage discipline in your schools? Like, how has ACEs and trauma informed practices changed the way you view student behavior?
Well, it's definitely changed my view, but you got to get that PD into the teacher's hands and let them understand it too. One of my favorite videos is, I think it's called Remove. There's 2 parts to it, and essentially, I don't want to ruin the video. You've seen it?
Yeah, it's powerful.
Very, very powerful, about that little girl that, one incident, and that is she's jumping around from caregivers and so forth, and the newest caregiver, so to speak, buys her a little dress, so to speak, and she absolutely loses it. And everything was going pretty well, and she felt the momentum going, and so forth. And then she gives her this dress. Well, little doesn't know, earlier in the video, this woman wouldn't know that. And the teachers don't know this too. The more they get to know these people and know their background, where they're from, where they live, and who they live with. But this little girl had witnessed, the mom had like a turnkey boyfriends coming in and so forth. And he was drunk one day in the kitchen and so forth. And he's hitting her. Oh, the mom tried to look pretty for this newest boyfriend, and he's flipping up her dress and hitting her and so forth. And that bring back that memory. That was that trigger for her. And so she lost it. So then, she kind of gave up, and she got removed and went to the newest foster home and so forth. But later on in two is, we talk about that, the staff have a lot of baggage and so forth. But it turns out the best ending of part 2, I don't know if you got to see part 2 of it, she ends up being a teacher.
I haven't seen it yet.
Part 2. I'm getting like goosebumps. She becomes a teacher. So don't tell me that teacher doesn't know and can't relate to those children. And she's an elementary school teacher, but she's got 25 each year and so forth. She can relate to all the triggers and the attitudes and the blow ups and the baggage and so forth. So I show that video all the time to my staff. I just showed it to one of my assistant principals that had not seen it. Trauma informed care is, safety, the physical and emotional well-being for them. They want a trustworthy adult, they want to have some choice, and they want to be able to collaborate, talk through things and so forth. And that's trauma informed care in a nutshell. And these kids, they just want a caring adult. It comes back to relationships and trust, which ultimately is that kid connector. And if they believe you care, they are going to dig deep. They're going to do your homework. They're going to behave. They're going to show up on time. They're going to dress appropriately with dress code. They're not going to, I hate to even talk about it, but they're not going to shoot up a school. Another thing, I'm kind of going off a tangent, but it's like, it connects perfectly. One of my best activities I've done in a couple buildings, and we're going to do it at Riverside, is I call it the lone wolf. I just gave it that activity. There's different ways of doing it, but essentially, you have the list of all your kids in your school, like I did at North, I did it in the cafeteria for a PD or faculty meeting, all the list of the kids, and the teachers had to go by and initial and write something quickly about that student, that they knew about, right? And I'm doing it on a Google Doc now because it's 1,800 kids and so forth. And I'm having guidance counselors and the administrators write stuff in about that. And what they're connected to, what about them, and take some time and so forth. But the ones that have nothing written about them, right? There's no connection. They're not connected to a activity or sport, or you don't know anything about them. Here we go. We're going to assign mentors to those kids. We're going to have check-ins with the guidance counselors, administrators. We're going to go have, talk to them at lunch, find out more about them, because, who are shooting up these schools? Unfortunately, they're not the kids that are, they're getting all the attention for the academics and the athletics, and they're not the ones that get in trouble all the time. It's the kids that do not have a connection. They don't have an empathy to a Coach Willis, a Mr. Fortuna, a Todd Scholl, a Bill Mayer. They're the ones that they go right through school every day, and they don't matter in their eyes, and nobody else matters, so to speak. So that's important. That's culture and climate. We want everybody to feel connected and have at least, I would hope, at least one caring adult, at least one peer that they can feel connected to, and at least one adult that they feel connected to. And we talk about all the time, why were buddy benches invented, on the playground, why, you don't want to see the one kid eating lunch by themselves, you want to go checking on those kids. I hate cell phones. I hate technology, to be honest with you, social media and so forth, because these kids aren't connected. They feel like with all the likes and the, and all this, they feel like they're important, and it's not genuine, and them in the cafeterias or walking in the hallways like this, they're not having conversations with kids, they're not feeling connected to that school, because it's instant gratification, and that it's actually not connecting. Did you ever see The Social Dilemma? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that. It's powerful.
How eye-opening and powerful is that? So I think that kind of answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to reiterate because it's such a powerful video for the educators who have not seen it, really anybody who hasn't seen. It's called Removed. It's about a 15 minutes, something like that video. You can probably find it on YouTube. Just search for Removed. Yeah, a warning is a very powerful video. It's kind of like, I'll show it. I've shown it in several sessions that I've done, and I have to kind of like step to the side for a little bit and kind of not pay attention, because it just gets to me every time. Like, just her story gets to me. I'm excited. I've got to go check out part 2. But what I love about it is it does that exact example is what we're talking about. Is you see a misbehavior, but what you're not seeing is the reason for it, and you're taking it personally, like it's something that the child's doing to you, when there's some kind of unmet need or some kind of underlying trigger or trauma that's creating the maladaptive behavior. But we're taking it as like this personal attack on us and what we have to do. And this is hard work. It's really, really hard not to take that personally, not to get upset, but to figure out what's going on with the child, and not just saying they're broken, they're bad, let's just punish them and move on. It's like, it's much harder work to figure out what's going on with that girl, because they're not even necessarily going to be able to articulate to you why they're doing what they're doing. Because they may not have made the conscious connection yet. But I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much for being a leader who understands this and taking the time to understand this, because we need more school leaders to do this. And it's going to just take time, because that is a huge culture shift. I think getting into that mindset that you got to get out of this mindset that kids are bad or whatever, but figuring out what their needs are and how do we meet them together as a group of adults leading.
One other point I want to make, because it's tied to this, Todd, is, one thing, I didn't see it at Ocean Bay and or at Carolina Forest. I think I saw a little bit of it at Conway, and then I really saw it at my, I didn't say it at Paradise Honors, and then I started seeing it at my home school of North Elementary. And then Mrs. Rogus, one of my mentors, pointed out is we start to see, if you pay attention real closely, the behaviors start amping up right before a holiday break. Yeah. So ask yourself, why is that? Because they know, one, they might not be getting fed. Two, if it's a holiday break, they might not be getting any Christmas presents, etc. That's why we do Santa Streak, and we the whole child initiative, making sure these kids are fed, with backpacks, we make sure we have the clothes closets, making sure we get, we identify what kids need something, and we ask obviously permission from the parents, and we try to make sure that they have something under the tree and so forth. But it's not even about the gifts and all that. Is they know that they're going home to, we're only around them 7-8 hours a day, right? So you got 16, 15, 16 other hours a day, plus the weekends away from them. But they know for a 2-week period, or a spring break, or the holiday break, fall break and so forth, they're not going to get that attention, that positive attention that we give to them. And you pay attention. Looking back, I saw it at certain schools with certain kids and so forth, but you track your data where these behaviors are popping up. It's before holidays, and that just shows you, once again, the impact that we have on these young people and how important we are in our profession.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful profession, and I think that's why most of us got into it and then stayed in it. Because I was, you talk about sales, like, so I went to USC, and I as soon as I graduated, started in sales, and within a few months, I felt empty, and my parents were both teachers, and I saw how fulfilled they were in their careers and how meaningful their work was. And so that's why I went back to teach. And then I stayed in the profession, because it's an amazing thing to work with another human being, with a young human being, and help direct them into the right path. Well, I want to ask you why you do this. Why did you get into the profession, and what continues to motivate and inspire Bill Mayer every day?
Yeah, so I kind of had this as my closing part, and I just kind of I'll just like to read it, so to speak. That I want them to remember their why. I start off at new buildings, giving wristbands. Remembering your why. That's this is my one at North, so to speak. And I know it's kind of cliche and so forth, but this is an important reminder that when the going gets tough in our profession, especially in the months of January, February, early March, I call it the death march. From Christmas. Yeah. To spring break, our why is simple. It's the students and the kids. They are why we get up in the morning. That's why it was one of my questions, and those 5 questions I sent out to Riverside staff members. It was cool to see a lot of their answers, and a lot of their answers are the kids. They're seeing the kids smile, or seeing the kids light up when they get those aha moments and so forth. But they got into this profession to make a difference. It's not for the money. We know that. I always joke, lawyers make this much, and doctors make this much, and what do teachers make? We make a difference, and we obviously start off all these other professions through us. We are the difference makers. We're the ones that inspire them to go into whatever direction they go. Enlist, employ, obviously, go into the collegiate world. So, I don't look at this profession as a job. I look at this as a calling. I consider myself a servant leader and so forth. But, I look forward to being around people. That's what lights my candle. And I like being around caring adults that, that were my kid connectors. And I got 7 of them that I always give credit to. And I try to, it's almost like my way of giving back and trying to imitate what they did for me. I think it's the most important job in our country, especially the way the world is today. One of my favorite, I'm a big quote guy and so forth. So one of my favorite movies is Miracle. And, the big quote in that movie is, great moments are born from great opportunities. And I think each and every day when we get to work with young people, that we get to influence the future. I remember my kid connectors, and like I already said, I give them full credit, but um, I love seeing the support from my South Carolina colleagues, from Carolina Forest and high school in Ocean Bay. We all support each other. We're always commenting, great job on this and so forth. And that's what, that's our why. We work together. We worked as a family for kids, whether it was back in the day, back in 2001 when I started, to obviously right now. And our work matters, and it matters more than ever now. Relationships that we have established with each other matter, and how we create that positive working environment and a positive culture and climate matter. The kids are watching us, our body language, our energy, our tone, that'll make or break our relationships with them in the classrooms, in the hallways, in the buildings. And I really think we just need to stay, positive, lean on each other, support each other, and remember our why, because the kids and families need us. And, in loco parentis, I always say that, in loco parentis, every one of these kids are my kids. They're my Joey Durdella, my Mia Durdella, and my Graylin River Mayor, and it's very, very important. And, I'm passionate about it. And, we got to be, because it's not going to get any easier. Unfortunately, we don't believe. And, we got to stick together and do what's best for kids.
Absolutely. So what did we miss, Bill? Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I think what, another little point. Now I'm going to give credit real quick to a couple of my kid connectors. Cheryl General, my sixth grade teacher. Jackie Berry, who was my sixth grade teacher then. It was Jackie Bell. She was actually one of my teachers this year, fourth grade teacher. High expectations and rigor. I recognized her at my going away little breakfast. Steve Clark was one of my eighth grade science teachers. He still teaches in the district. He was a middle school wrestling coach for me. Bob Peterlin, he was my ninth grade football coach. He made me believe in myself. I was a little guy on this big, huge football team, and then he could put me into some right spots and starting spots, and I succeeded. And that's really where I think I built my first truly being confident in myself, because I was a little guy on a big, huge team, and we were undefeated that year, 10-0. So I really give credit to him. Coach Willis, he made me believe in myself. He's one of those two guys, three guys probably, that I would run through a wall for. Gary Fortuna, he was my PE teacher this year. I recognized him with the Law of Legacy Award. He was the last award that we gave out at our fifth grade awards banquet. And he actually got me into, I give credit. He got me into this profession. My senior year project, I got to choose what, you get to choose what you want to do. And, it's good to find out if you don't like it or you do like it. And I went back to my old wrestling coach, my old PE teacher at North Elementary, and the rest is history, because he got me into it. And he showed me, it wasn't just rolling out the ball in PE. He's showing me how to do lesson plans. He's showing me, how to deal with parents and, all that kind of stuff right from the jump. And I'm 18 years old. And then finally, my coach, my baseball coach, Coach Palm. And I say this, and these adults led by example. They expected more out of me. They praised me. They supported me. They challenged me. They critiqued me. They were hard on me. They gave me tough love when I needed it. They knew how I ticked, and they knew me personally to push me to a level that I could handle. Sometimes they were not nice to me, to believe it or not, but I needed that at that time. I needed direction at times, and they gave it to me. They cared enough to say no. And they knew when to say do more, work harder. They knew when to praise me. They share, and I can share vivid memories, just like I did with, just about that. And I go into detail about Cheryl General and Jackie Bear, because they made that connection that I can tell 25 years later. This is my 25th anniversary of graduating from Madison High School, but I can tell you stories. Those people made a difference in my lives, and they fought for me. They were tough on me. Like I said, they said no. So it's not all about giving kids what they want. It's not about knowing what they need, pushing them to the level that they need, and getting the most out of them, and getting to be 1% better each and every day. So, and then the last thing I want to say is, have you ever seen, I'm sure you've seen, everybody's seen it, but the TED Talk by Rita Pearson, Every Kid Needs a Champion.
Yes, I have. Yep.
Very, 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 as inspiring as that, or, eye-opening as, removed, but a couple points that she points out, I rewatched it today before this, but, the value and importance of human connection. All learning is understanding relationships. Children don't learn from adults they don't like. And that's not a popularity contest, but if If they know you have attitude and and you're checked out and you're a check collector, you're just doing it because you have to do it, they're not gonna rise the occasion. They're not gonna pay attention. They're not gonna go the extra mile. They're not gonna study for that big test.
Yeah.
Seek first to understand before being understood. Pretty much what you said. Apologizing, saying sorry when you make mistakes. That their jaw will drop when that happens. Same thing as administrator. If I screw up, don't be too high on my horse, like you said, and admit where you made a mistake. Because that's the trust factor right there. Staff that helps students make them feel somebody and insist that they be the best versions of themselves. Don't let students know that you don't like them when you're frustrated. We talked about that, giving them that new start each and every day, which is hard. Believe me, I remember a couple kids that I did not do that. I failed that checkbox, and then essentially, in our own words, that law of legacy. What you teach them, they might not remember, but they will never, forget that relationship that you establish with them. So,
100%. All that stuff. Yeah. Rita Pearson. What's the name of the video again?
Every kid needs a champion.
Every kid needs a champion. Yeah, I think that's on YouTube too. It's a TED Talk. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I have one last question for you. I would be in trouble with my boss if I didn't ask you this, because he is a huge Ohio State Buckeyes fan. So what's it looking like for the Buckeyes this season?
It's funny you say that. So I'm going to flip my little camera here, because I'm a big Buckeye fan. I got Buckeye golf cart. I don't want to show you my bar here with all the Buckeye. Yeah. But this is how serious we take it right there. Ohio State,
check that out.
On time until the game, because you could have a different clock going for the last time they beat us, so to speak. Now we had that clock going forever, but now it's now until redemption a little bit. So I think the Buckeyes, we got the number one wide receiver, possibly the number one quarterback in the country. So we'll see. We always have trouble with Clemson somehow, some way, and now we see Alabama. But I think we'll take the Wolverines this year, but we'll see.
All right. Well, Bill, it's so good to catch up with you like this, and hopefully we can do it less formally at some point when you're back in town, or if I ever make it up that way. And I just am so impressed with the work that you've been doing and watching the trajectory of your career, and so excited for you at this new opportunity at Riverside. I know you're going to make a huge difference there, and I know that the people are going to really embrace you and embrace the culture that you're building. And I can't wait to sort of see how that all unfolds over the next year. So I wish you nothing but the best. I appreciate you being here and your time and all of your thoughts and your energy and everything you've done for kids and for teachers and for your staff and for your communities, making a positive difference in this world. So I appreciate you so much. And for everybody watching, just if you're interested, I've got Bill's contact information. I can connect you with him. You can email me. You can just comment on this, and I'm sure he'll check the comments as well. Sure. And if you're interested in joining us at the SCEA, head on over to jointhescea.org. You can learn more about the Center for Educator Wellness and Learning at cool.us, at cewl.us. Right now, you can join the SCEA with no dues until September, and we would love to have you as a part of our movement to help create the kind of schools that Bill's talking about tonight, the kind of schools that our educators deserve, that our students deserve, that our communities deserve, and working together and having a collective voice to build those kind of schools is the work that we're driven by at the SCEA. So, Bill, any final words before we check out?
No, just put those relationships first, and build that trust, and everything will take care of itself. Remember your why. That's huge. Remembering that why.
All right. Thanks so much, Bill. And you have a great night and a great year.
I appreciate it, Todd. Thank you.